How is that going to change? That's going to change when they organise with one another.
I am so tired of women whining.
Mate,
it's
the only
like
person whining.
I feel like Pearl gives very much pick me. Do I care? Connecting people with policy. If y'all haven't watched my last video, I just finished doing a reaction on the last Piers Morgan interview. It's like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, or Snow Woke in the. I'm gonna link it on this video and y'all watch it. That video was so funny. But this video, before I begin, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, turn on post notifications when I post, so you're notified when I post a new video. Follow me on my social media if you want to, you can. If you don't, you don't, you know. Anyways, but this video is said, I am tired of women whining. The female Andrew Tate, Pearl Davis on equal pay in sports. Should misgendering be a crime? 44% of millennials think using wrong pronouns should be illegal. What? Okay. I'm going to answer this already. No, it shouldn't be a crime. However, I do think there's a level of respect, I would say. Like, if someone came to me and they transitioned and they want to be called, want me to call them like he, him, or she, her, I think that us as human beings, we can at least owe them that mutual respect of calling them what they want to be called. But when we're talking about using wrong pronouns, should it be illegal, making it a crime? It's like the way that pronouns are already moving in today's day and age. Like, one moment someone can have a she, her pronoun, the next 2 months it can be they, them. Like, you never know. So like, that's kind of ridiculous. But we're gonna watch it. This is low-key, not low-key, high-key live reaction, because he just posted this. So we're gonna see what's going, what's tea. Let's get it.
The socialist and author Grace Blakely and YouTube commentator Pearl Davis, both, I would imagine, identifying
Pearl
as
is very different.
Provocateurs.
Of course.
I don't watch her. I've watched her clips before. She's very, like, different. She gives me, like, and I'm not being disrespectful. This is just because I try not to be disrespectful on this platform. I really tried not to. But my honest opinion, I don't think she truly believes a lot of the stuff that comes out of her mouth. Only because she doesn't practice what she says. Like, if she were to actually practice what she says, then I would be like, okay, she actually believes what she's saying, because she practices it in real life. But the only reason why I feel like she says a lot of things for shock value is because her personal life and stuff that has come out with her, it's completely different than what she, like, you know, preaches.
Let's talk about this first of all, Pearl. I just find the whole personal pronoun thing honestly absurd. My personal pronouns on my Twitter biography are now hot, hotter, hottest. And frankly, if people don't call me those, then they have to be jailed. I go along with that. But I did.
Another thing about pronouns, something, in my opinion, I felt like pronouns, the way it's used now, I feel like people just use it for aesthetics. Not all people, because originally what pronouns were meant for people who don't identify with what they were born into, or their birth gender, if that makes sense. So like, if someone was born a girl and they transition, or they're non-binary or so forth, then they would put pronouns. So like, I feel like the way pronouns are used now, people are just saying it just to say it. They're just saying it to prove they're an ally or something along the lines of that. Like, I feel like it's so fake now. Like, people just have it in their bios just to have it, like, when in reality it wasn't meant for that. It was mainly meant for those who identify with something that's different than what they were born into. That's my thoughts.
To highlight that when
I respect people's pronouns. I feel like that's the least you can do, is respect someone's pronouns.
I think the whole thing is ridiculous. Why do we need personal pronouns?
We don't need personal pronouns. I don't think it's kind to allow people to live in delusion. At the end of the day, we all know what a man and a woman is, okay? Just because you dress like a woman, talk like a woman, act like a woman, it does not make you a woman. And I am so tired of us allowing these people to let us live in delusion. It is delusional to think you are the opposite gender, and it is not kind.
I can't even go on. I love flying British.
But the only thing is like this is because like we can say one thing within our personal lives, like let's say for Pearl, like with what she's saying, that's her personal beliefs and so forth, and a lot of us have that same personal belief, but it's also, we live in a society where people live their lives differently. So I think it's kind of disrespect, in my opinion. Like if I know someone transitioned or whatever, and I know they're a trans woman or trans male, and even whether I agree with them transitioning or not, if they want to be called, hey, I go by he, him now. Can you reference me as he, him? Like, I know I'm a trans man, but just for my, like, sanity, can you reference me he, him? The least I can do is, like, respect that. You get me? Like, whether I agree with it or not, the least I can do is respect that. Now, a different conversation will come into play when we say are trans man the same as men or are trans women the same as women. That's a different conversation because that's, like, reality and what it is. Like, trans man are trans man, men are men, women are women, trans women are trans women. That's a different reality. But as far as someone's pronouns, me personally, I don't lose sleep calling someone what they want to be called. Like, it's just a respect thing in my
Right?
My personal
preferred airline. A wonderful airline. And there always used to be a lovely posh voice saying, "Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Britain." And I used to felt soothing, particularly if I came from another country back to Britain. I felt immediately at ease. My captain was there, sounding like he was, from some wonderful Pathé News bulletin, and he referred to us as ladies and gentlemen. That's now been banned. They're not allowed to say ladies and gentlemen because there might be one person on the plane who says, whoa, hang on, I don't identify as a lady or a gentleman. Well, okay, fine, I don't care, but I do.
I don't like that either.
So where's my right to be called a gentleman?
Grace, you know how I feel about this. I'm so bored of it all. I'm so bored of the fact that this is the one item that's constantly coming up over and over and over again. And you can completely see why, right? Conservative governments have destroyed our economy. We're in the middle.
It's just gotten to the point where, like, I agree, like, it's the same conversations, but also we can't dismiss the feelings of everybody, though. Like, we can't dismiss the reality. The whole concept of, like, this is what I always say this, and I say in my last video too, like, we've gotten to the point where people want to be deep so bad, fake deep so bad, so much so they are willing to live in a contradiction themselves. Like, we can't say one thing, like inclusiveness and this and the third, accept people's pronouns and yada yada yada, but then dismiss, like, people's feelings and people's, like, you see what I'm saying? It's just like, it's just a lot. It's a
massive climate crisis just after the hottest week ever. I've just come over from Europe. It's extremely hot. And instead of talking about that, we spend hours and hours and hours talking about pronouns, talking about going into bathrooms, talking about, all of this stuff that just doesn't matter.
Yeah, but you see, it doesn't matter. Hang on.
It doesn't matter, but then again, it does. Because, as y'all know, I am progressive. I call myself an independent progressive because I'm my own type of progressive, because I'm not what progressive is nowadays. I agree with what she says, like, it doesn't matter, but then again, I agree with Piers with what he says, because it does matter. We have gotten to the point where, like, it's chaotic. It's actually crazy. Like, what is going on? Like, I'm looking around like, bro, what is going on? Like, ooh, excuse me. We've gone to that point.
I'm so bored.
It doesn't matter to you, but it does matter to women in sport. It does matter to women whose young daughters might be using these dressing rooms. It does matter to the victims of male rapists who see their attackers identify as women to get into women's prisons. Sorry, so when you say they don't matter, they really do
matter. Let's have those issues aired in the appropriate, spaces.
We are.
In sports, have that discussion amongst sports people. But, like, literally, it's about priorities, isn't it? There is a certain number of time that we have on these shows to discuss the issues that matter.
You don't think women's... Hang on, before we come to our next...
I don't think women's sport matters as much as climate change. I think, like, having a planet in which we can...
I don't think that's fair for her to say, though. Like, you can't... Like, obviously, I don't think that's fair for her to say, because she doesn't make money as a woman athlete. She doesn't, like, she has no attachment to women's sports. So, like, of course, climate change affects all, but we can't just dismiss certain issues because you're not directly affected by it. You get what I'm saying? Like, Yeah, I feel like this is very dismissive.
Play sport matters more than the
does
rules
women's
of sport.
equality matter
I know
to
that makes me probably absolutely
Does women's
insane.
equality matter to you?
Well, I mean, yeah, of course, but actually,
Okay.
I mean, the whole point
Okay.
that I was going to make on this segment actually is that you cannot separate feminism from class issues. Like, if you're just going around saying, I don't know, I think the female CEO of a weapons manufacturer should be paid the same as a male CEO, and that's the hill I'm going to die on. I'm not fighting that fight with you, because ultimately, what I care about are the struggles that ordinary women face every day.
Well, let's come to the main point of the segment, which is this issue of women's rights to be paid the same as men in sport. Now, the Australian women's football team have criticised the pay gap in the upcoming World Cup prize money. Let's take a look at what they said as a team.
736 footballers have the honour of representing their country on the world's biggest stage, this tournament.
Yet many are still denied the basic right to organise and collectively bargain.
Collective bargaining has allowed us to ensure we now get the same conditions as the Socceroos, with one exception. FIFA will still only offer women 1/4 as much prize money as men for the same achievement.
Well, okay, this is interesting, Pearl, because if you look at the revenue, for example, in 2019, FIFA generated £586 million in total revenue. The men's, for the 2019-22 cycle, 5.8 billion. Record revenue through the Men's World Cup. So the women's game has come on in leaps and bounds. The English Lionesses, fantastic win, sell-out crowds, they're making a lot more money. They're definitely way, way further now towards where the men are commercially than they were, but they're still a way off. And when you saw at Wimbledon, for example, the men's final was watched by 3 times as many people, and yet they were both free to air on.
But we also have to look at how much is being
both
invested in men's sports as opposed to women's sports. Because I'll be the first to admit, I don't watch women's sports like that unless it's tennis. I used to watch Serena Williams growing up, or if it was I watch track and field. I love watching Sha'Carri Richardson. Certain sports I would watch women play sports. Even with men, certain sports I only watch. When it comes to men's sports, I really only watch track and field, basketball. Basketball's number one, obviously. Track and field, basketball. I don't even watch men's tennis. I don't watch football. Boxing, depending on who's boxing. My point of making is we have to yes, look at the amount of revenue that's being that's the amount of revenue overall, but also the amount of money that's being invested. I think it's a solid argument if we were to say Serena Williams, she sold so amount of tickets, and this no-name tennis player sold less, but he has more money. I don't know how to explain it, but it's I feel like context really matters when it comes to equal pay in sports, because I feel like a lot of times a lot of women who don't have a lot of money invested in them can still produce just as equally as the men, but are still being undercut. But in the same sentence, I'm gonna use NBA and WNBA for example. WNBA, they don't make a lot of profit, so they're not gonna make money like the NBA players, sort of say. And then another thing that I did notice, I'm gonna use WNBA for example. I think they said the average, I have to double check, but the average WNBA player makes less than 6 figures. And the fact that they would ask us to go above and beyond, not only WNBA players, but just in general, these people who are in the professional sports, asking us to go above and beyond to help them protest and do this and the third until they get equal pay. But it's you're making more than what the average American even makes. So welcome to our world. You get me? You're complaining that you're making $90,000 a year in the WNBA, but teachers are making $40,000-$50,000. Be for real. Not only with female sports, but just in general. When I feel obviously when you compare yourself to others that you're doing the same work as, it's welcome to reality. Welcome to everyday living. There are teachers out there who are struggling each and every day trying to make ends meet with $40,000, and people are complaining that they're making 6 figures as opposed to not making millions. So it's hard for me to feel bad for people in that situation, even though I don't know, it's a lot. But
if you wanted to, so there was 3 times as much interest in the men's game. They play 2 sets more per match than the women do, and yet the women get equal pay. I'm not quite sure why. I don't think it's a matter of equality. It's just a matter of fairness, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I won. I think all of the women should thank the men for funding our leagues, because most of our leagues would not exist without the men, number one.
That is
number
true for
two,
WNBA
when
and
we
NBA,
have the same numbers, then we should get the same pay. I'm sorry, I play volleyball at the highest.
Some of them actually do have the same numbers, though. Like, I don't want to say like it's a fact. I have to actually double look it. But I think it was it was like a women's soccer team. Let me not even say it, because I can't say it confidently because I have to double check. But some of them actually do have the numbers, depending on the sport. That's why I said context
when we
matters.
make what the men make and get the crowds that the men draw, then we should get paid the same.
Well, see, why is it actually a fight?
Okay, but that's another thing, because if you're an NBA fan, you know 10 years ago, was it 10 years? How old am I? So it's 2023, a little over 10 years ago, the Charlotte Bobcats, when they were the Charlotte Bobcats, they were not selling tickets. They were not making money. But they were still getting paid more than, like, be for real. They were not bringing in profit. No one was going to watch Charlotte Bobcats play basketball. Like, that's a double standard that they're not talking about.
Quality, Grace. I mean, why, if women in a particular sport, for example, turned out to generate more revenue, right, because they were more watchable, and in America, the women's football team is better than the men, and they do generate, even at school level, far more interest from girls than boys, for example. I don't see why equality should be the aim. Why shouldn't they get paid more than the men?
Well, look, I mean, there are all sorts of problems with the way that this market for labour, and it is basically a market for labour, works. Like, I personally don't think that the top football players in the world should be paid as much as they do. I think it's ridiculous, the amount.
But that's market force.
Exactly. It's market forces.
Well, why shouldn't they get
that be the way that we decide, you know, who generates
you?
what? Who generates what? Personally, I'm very much in favour of the fact that they came out there and said collective bargaining. Ultimately, like, the average worker in this country hasn't had a pay rise in over a decade. How is that going to change? That's going to change when they organise with one another.
I am so tired of women whining.
Mate,
it's
the only person whining.
I feel like Pearl gives very much pick me. Like, very much. Because she's not really whining. She's just saying her point. Like, even though, like, I disagree with some of her points, I don't see it as her whining. She's literally just saying her solid point. Like, just say it. No, I disagree. A, B, and C. Like,
the men fund our leagues, and we will still whine that we don't get paid enough. And honestly, when athletes do shit like this, it makes all of us look bad. Because instead of being thankful for the league that we have, we go out and whine and complain about the pay.
I mean, as I said, I'm not whining. You sound like you're maybe doing a bit of whining, but, like, personally, I don't think we should be whining. I think people should be organising. If you want a pay increase, join a union, get out there and fight for it. That's my view.
Should the women footballers get the same as the men?
Yeah, I think it probably makes sense.
Even if they're not making anything like the revenue.
Ultimately, like, it's not going to change.
That's what I was saying in my first point. Like, this is why context really matters. Like, people look at stuff like it's black and white. Like, this is why whenever I watch videos like this, I can see each point, because it's like, oh, she makes sense because A, B, and C. Oh, she made a good point because D, E, F. Like, it's about context. It's not like black and white. Like, it really depends on the sport. It depends on the person. It depends on, like, for example, when it comes to women's basketball, when for LSU, they're doing their thing right now. When we look at let's say Angel Reese, for example, if she were to go in the WNBA, she's going to bring a lot of traction. Her name itself will sell a lot of tickets. So her herself should be getting paid more and more. Like, you see what I'm saying? Why it's context? Because it's like WNBA players, like, yes, a lot of them, they want to get paid more or whatever. But it's like, you got to look at the situation. Like, let's be honest with ourselves.
It's not going to change unless they organise. That's actually true across every sector of the economy. If you want a pay rise, join a union and fight for one.
Let me ask you this, though. They have got unions. But let me ask you this. On talent alone, for example, as a yardstick, the US women's football team were beaten by a group of under-15 boys from Texas, right? Who were very good, under-15 boys, but their under-15 boys team beat them, I think, about 8-9-0 or something. So why should women footballers, who are clearly nowhere near as good as their male counterparts, just technically, why should they get paid anything like as much money?
Well, I mean, you know, it's...
okay, that, I don't like that as an example, because number one, you have to look at the fact of, like, if they were to go against... Okay, this goes back to like, because this is such a complex like topic. Like this goes back to men. They're already built and born a certain structure physically at a physical advantage. Like I remember when Serena Williams, she was ranked number 1 in women's tennis, and she went against, I think he was 256 ranked male or 255, something like that, and she still lost. Like that's like comparing apples and oranges. What she is saying specifically, I think she's saying the top women, the women who are on top of like their sports and everything like that, women who are competing on these high competitive levels, they should at least be getting paid the same as men who are competing in the same competitive high levels. But what Piers is trying to tell her, that I feel like she's not really like fully understanding, is that the women who are competing in the high competitive levels, like yes, they are on that high competitive level and they should be getting paid a good amount, but if they're not bringing in revenue, then what can we do at this point? But then again,
doesn't it? That like as a woman,
y'all know my head is spinning.
You play volleyball. I'm a surfer. I absolutely love surfing. It's very hard for women to build up a body strength. This is something that I've learned very much the hard way. And so,
surfers, by the way, there is equal pay.
Yeah, there is. And actually, it's one of those sports where
can a woman be as good as a man or not?
Well, it's different. It's a different sport, really. It's not, it's the same sport, but it's very different watching a woman surf than it is watching a man surf, because the average male body is different from the average woman, like woman's body.
But is there any actual technical reason why a woman can't do with a surfboard what a man can do?
Yeah, there's loads of reasons. Like it is about the upper body strength. It's about like the way that the body is built.
So should women surfers at the elite level get the same as men?
But like again, I think it just is different. Like it's a different kind of game, and people watch it.
You're shaking your head.
No, I just think when we start making the same amount of money as the men, then we should get paid the same as the men. I don't hear the men whining about OnlyFans models getting paid more than them. I don't hear the men whining about models.
Come on, Pearl. What? This is apples and oranges. This girl said OnlyFans. It's
getting paid more than them. Kendall Jenner is the highest paid supermodel. Where are the male supermodels? But whenever men dominate in an industry, women will just complain.
I don't know if that's true about OnlyFans, because there are a lot of men on OnlyFans as well. But I mean,
the modeling one.
The main point here.
That's a good point, though.
I have no idea.
But then again, we have to look at the demand. I feel like that's what I'm saying. Context matters, y'all. Oh my gosh. We look at the demand as well. Like, what is the demand on male models as opposed to women models and so forth?
Out the number of men and women that are on that website. Anyway, look, the main point here, the point that I came on here, that I wanted to make.
That is true too, because you talk about OnlyFans. Sorry, I keep pausing it, but this has got my mind going. She used OnlyFans as an example. Why do women get more money, subscribers on OnlyFans? Maybe because the majority of the people who are on OnlyFans or watching OnlyFans are men. Like that's not our fault.
Was the problem that we have in our economy at the moment is not that like the average football player isn't paid the same as the average man. It is probably an injustice, and I'm glad that they're organising and working together to fight for that. But ultimately, the problem we have in our economy is that nobody's getting paid enough money because inflation's eroded people's wages. Even before that, no one had a pay rise in a really long time. And the lesson from this is, as I've said, I'm going to say it again because it's an important lesson, and no one knows about them anymore because they see them as a hangover from the 1970s. Join a union, because otherwise your boss is going to walk away.
But there are unions for all these. It's the unions that are fighting for them.
Exactly.
But just as a general point, though, the principle you think that women should get paid the same, even if they're not as technically as good and not producing as much revenue.
It's a subjective judgment, isn't it, on whether or not they're like technically as good?
Well, not really.
No, it's not.
Because people watch men and women's sports for different reasons.
Well, let me give an example. An example would be the Olympics. If you made it non-gender specific, how many women would win medals?
Well, I mean,
none.
Okay,
that's like, okay, we can't say, okay, that is subjective though, but I see what he's saying. Like, this is, I really like this because it's like they got good points. So when we say women is not as good, you can't really say women aren't as good because we're not that capable. For example, when it comes to like basketball and dunking and stuff, a woman could be so cold at basketball, but when you look at the capability, their capability is maybe this, as opposed to man's physical capability maybe this. So he's more capable, physically more capable to do certain things. That's like looking at track and field and saying, oh, Allison Phoenix, she is so good and running her 400 doop-de-doop. But she's not as good as, like, Usain Bolt or something. Like, you are comparing apples and oranges. That's like, I don't know, man.
Maybe in shooting, I think, of the
But
two.
again, I think-
where there's no sense that the men might win.
You can say like, oh, you know, this group is better than this group. But again, I think it's different.
Men are
It's
better than
different.
women
We
at
watch-
sports. Yes, let's not live in this delusion.
And in most,
I played
and in
16
most cases,
years
and in most
ago.
cases, Grace, more people, men and women, want to watch men play
Better
sport.
is subjective.
I mean,
That's just a demonstrable fact. That may
like,
change.
name
My point is,
That is not a solid argument. Better is subjective. You can say men are more capable of doing or of achieving more in sports, or men are more physically capable of achieving more in sports than women. That is a solid argument. But you can't just say better because it's subjective. Because you can't just say, oh, this tennis player is better than Serena Williams. But Serena, she's maxed out her capability. Like, have you, like, come on now.
if it changes, I don't see why
Come on
equality
now.
should be the only ambition for the women. If it turns out that in some sport women get more viewers watching and therefore draw more revenue, I'm all for them getting more money than the men.
Can you name 5 WNBA players? 5 female soccer players?
I mean, I can't name any soccer players
That's
already.
crazy. I
What
wish we
is
had the support
WNBA?
from the
basketball?
feminists.
I don't
We
know.
would get equal pay if we would just get the
That
support
is true.
from the feminists.
Well, let me tell you.
True.
Name 5.
Let me tell
Name
you.
five what? WNBA? I don't even know what the WNBA is.
We need our
Basketball.
support.
You're asking the wrong person.
Yeah,
I
you
think.
really are.
But I do want to mention one
But
thing, which is
that is a point that she's making, because she's saying y'all want, because she's pretty much telling her, you're saying they need to get equal pay, but are you out there supporting them and to ensure that they get this equal pay? Like, that's a
I
good
had
point
Dale
that
Vince on the
Pearl
program.
made.
He's been
twister,
funding
y'all.
Just Stop Oil, and also he was very, very keen to show his feminist credentials because he owns a football team, and he had just hired the first female manager of a football team, but there was a slight
be
problem,
thinking it's turning
which
off, y'all.
he only made her the
Been
caretaker,
here
and
for a
I saw a
minute.
potential flaw here. So let's see what went down when I interviewed him. You didn't think by appointing the first female caretaker manager of a professional men's team you would get any attention?
She's the best candidate for the job at the club. This is what happens. You look at within the club, you find your best coach, and you say, take the team in an interim period while we do a proper recruitment process. That's all that's happening here. Why do you keep coming back to that?
Because she's
If you
only
look
a
at our record
caretaker.
of appointments.
She's only a caretaker.
Look at our record of
So
appointments.
if you believed in her that much, you'd have
Look
made
at
her
the record
manager. You've got all
of
the
appointments.
publicity, but actually
No,
she's
no,
not
no.
got the full
That's
job.
not how it works.
And I suspect what's going to happen is you're going
I
to go
thought
and
you
find.
understood football.
You're going to probably go and find a bloke to replace her, and then you're going to have to deal with that.
I thought you understood football, Piers.
I do. I'm an
I thought
Arsenal
you
fan.
did.
Well, you might be massively unsurprised to learn that 12 days later, Hannah Dinkley has been removed from her job as caretaker manager and replaced by a man. Yeah, Dale talked a good game on feminism and women's rights and boasted about it and got all the publicity. And in the end, he got rid of her after 12 days and put a bloke in charge. And you can make your own view about Mr. Vince for doing that. Lovely to see you both. Thank you both very much indeed.
Oh, wow. Yeah, y'all, this episode was very interesting. This is very interesting. Like, these are very interesting to watch. As you can see, like, in the midst of this whole interview, there's really solid points. I think overall, when it comes to making sure women get equal pay, I think context matters. 110%. 110%. Obviously, revenue plays a big part of it. I think that's a big part when it comes to competitive sports. That's a big part that a lot of people aren't looking into. But when it comes to just like even everyday life, CEOs, people who are working in tech, business managers, like, I feel like that's where the issue actually like stems from. Not even stems from. I feel like it's a bigger issue in everyday working class families than competitive sports, in my opinion, at least. Because a lot of the times, like, that people don't talk about competitive sports is based off revenue. Everyday working class people, they doing the same job, probably even more, and it's like, hello. But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, follow me on my social medias, turn on post notifications so you're notified when I post another video. And yeah, like, let me, what are your thoughts on this? Because it got a little feisty. got a little feisty to say the least. But yeah, this is your girl Udoak, and this is Connecting People with Policy. Deuces.